Today, I am at the Rocky Mountains, one of the largest, most significant mountain ranges in the world. Recently, I was out exploring the Rockies, and I began to look around and wonder, how on earth did these mountains form? For almost all other major mountain ranges on the planet, it's clear to any geologist how they came about. Long story short, typically a convergent plate boundary, subduction mountains. But in the case of the Rockies, that question is surprisingly deep, no pun intended, and complicated. Take a look at this map. Here you can see major mountain ranges here, etc. Now take a look at this map. Everywhere where there are massive mountains, there is a plate boundary. The only other major exception to this would be the massive mountains and fjords of Scandinavia, namely Norway, called, well, the Scandinavian Mountains. But those mountains were formed about 400 million years ago and came about as the result of a massive ancient tectonic plate collision. In the case of the Rockies, they were only formed about 55 to 75 million years ago, and at all that time, they've never been directly located on a plate boundary. So, what gives? Well, for starters, there were ancient mountains formed in the late Paleozoic period known as the Ancestral Rocky Mountains. These were formed by an ancient tectonic plate collision, but they were quite small, only reaching about 2,000 feet in height. On top of this, they wore down significantly over the next couple hundred million years. However, their importance lies instead in the formations they established that would be built upon during future geological events. It's probably important, or at least really interesting, to note that the location of the future Rockies was entirely underwater at this point. During the late Cretaceous period, present-day North America was bisected by the Western Interior Seaway. Whoa. I mean, just think about it. Everything you see behind me would have been completely underwater. The maximum depth of the sea is only estimated to be about 2,500 to 3,000 feet deep, but that still would have been enough to cover all of this. And besides, those mountains wouldn't have even been there. Obviously. I mean, that's the point of the video. As the Western Interior Seaway was receding, those ancestral Rockies that were underwater began to poke back out, though they were practically flat at this point from a mountain standpoint. But like with people, it wasn't what was on the surface that was important. It was what was going on underneath. Believe in yourself. Those foundations were about to develop into one of the most legendary mountain ranges ever seen. 75 million years ago, the Laramide orogeny took place, and this is where things really started to heat up, no pun intended. What happened was, there was a sea plate called the Farallon Sea Plate which collided with the North American Plate. The Farallon Sea Plate subducted underneath it, but it didn't go in the normal prescribed manner of a quick subduction. Instead, it slid very shallowly underneath the North American Plate. It went much farther inland, as at this point the Farallon Plate took a deep dive into the mantle, pushing and compressing the North American Plate above, thrusting them up and turning them into mountains. What happened to the Farallon Plate? For anybody with just a shallow, no pun intended, understanding of plate tectonics, you've probably never heard of this one before. I certainly hadn't. That's because it no longer exists. At least in that same form. The Pacific Plate came up from behind and smashed into the Farallon Plate, causing it to break apart into three smaller plates that you may have heard of. The Juan de Fuca Plate, Rivera Plate, and Cocos Plate. All of these are still around today. Funnily, there are islands off the coast of San Francisco named the Farallon Islands. It is difficult to find information on whether or not these were named in conjunction with the plate, but it would make sense geographically. However, Farallones means cliffs in Spanish, so named because of the shape of these islands, so it may just be a coincidence. Or both. Anyway, so the Rocky Mountains were formed by the flat slab subduction of the Farallon Sea Plate. Great! In addition, the Laramide orogeny mountain building event also saw the formation of the Colorado Plateau during this time. But there is one more question that we should take a look at. As anybody who has visited them knows, these mountains are massive. But the region where these are located would geologically not be expected to be able to support mountains of this size. In fact, they would only be expected to be about half of what their actual size is. So, what gives? Well, for mountains to be stable and supported, there must be a thick crust underlying it, thick enough to support the weight of the mountains. Basically, the continental crust on top needs to be lighter than the dense mantle beneath it. While there is no definitive answer about why and how the Rockies are afloat, the prevailing idea is that there is a very dense crust below them combined with a hot underlying mantle to support the range's weight. This is really the only thing that would make sense, so in other words, we really just don't know exactly why these mountains are able to stand so tall. But the fact of the matter is, These young mountains are certainly standing tall today, and they likely will be for many, many years to come. Well, there you have it. Not so mysterious after all, are you? Anyway, the Rocky Mountains will almost certainly crop up in a future video. I mean, we barely scratched the surface of these incredible rocks, no pun intended. In the meantime, as always, stay safe, stay humble, and do something good. Oh, and subscribe. See you later. Also, you should click one of these things. I think I'm either like covered by the subscribe button or the logo. So click that, or click this, or both. Subscribe and then watch this, or just click something.